turn it over to Jim, and we'll get started with our first Tech Club of the year. Thank you, Jim.
Hey everyone, welcome. Yeah, Tech Club. All right, back into the technology with 2024. It's never stopping. Um, Today we're going to talk about searching the internet. All kinds of stuff related to that. We got tips and tricks, search engines, things you may already know, and things you might have never heard before. So I know me personally, like sometimes you search the internet and it's just real basic, and sometimes you're looking for something that's more in depth and you need some tips and tricks. So we'll go over everything that I have today. I'm not necessarily the world's biggest expert on the internet, but we will do our best here today. Um, I'm going to share my screen here and I have a little presentation for you. Can everyone see that?
Yep, we got it.
That is the trickiest part of the whole thing. All right, so yeah, just actually this says Computer Basics 2. This should just say Computer Basics. We got a typo, first line. This is kind of part of our Computer Basics uh, series of classes here at the library. We started doing some computer basics that are in person. And this one isn't in person, obviously, but we're gonna offer this class also maybe a little bit modified, but like this group is, I would call it kind of a medium level group. And then maybe for an even more beginner group, we're gonna offer an in-person class at the library next Friday, and then at the beginning of February also. So if you know anyone that might be a little intimidated with Zoom or might just enjoy the in-person style of learning better, we have 6 spots for each class. So there'd be like a small workshop type of a thing. And it'll be, yeah, it's coming, not tomorrow, but the next Friday morning at 10:30. And then I think it's February 9th, maybe the beginning of February on a Friday. So yeah, searching the internet. So in this class, we're going to talk about our popular search engines that I think a lot of people are familiar with, or at least have heard of. Search tips and tricks, different types of searches, how to use search filters, and how to evaluate information online. That's always a part of really everything we do online. So searching is more than Googling, although Googling is a big part of it. You can search in your web browser. You can search using a voice search. If you search with like Amazon Alexa or something like that in your house, or with your phone, your voice assistant. When you search on Amazon, you're actually using their own search engine that searches their site. If you search for, on YouTube, that's a Google search, but it's a different way, a really common way that people find information on like how-to videos and things like that. Or you could do an audio search, like searching for like what song you're listening to. So Google is by far the most popular search engine in the world. It's kind of astounding. It's about 90% of all searches worldwide, which is higher than I thought. It's not quite that high in America, but worldwide it's 90%, and actually 95% of mobile searches, so searches on your smartphone, most of them are accomplished through Google. Also Google, if you're using a Chrome browser, that uses the Google search engine. A lot of people don't realize Apple iPhone, that uses Google. So if you search with your iPhone, that's what you're using. Or if you perform a voice search and say, "Hey Siri," that's using Google search engine. Most Android phones partner with Google, so they use Google as well. If you use the Safari browser on an iPhone, that's using Google. Firefox browser, YouTube, like we already mentioned. So as you can see, like between iPhones and Android phones that come with all the Google suite in there, that's a lot of the phones out there. So when you're searching, it's usually Google on your phone. And the other big one is Bing, which is Microsoft. And so that's about maybe around a third of searches in the US or go through Bing. And that's mostly because Bing is built into all Windows computers. So here at the library, if you come use our computer lab and there's this little search bar at the bottom left of every computer. And if you type in there, it'll search the internet, and that's using Bing. Or if you're using Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer web browsers, or if you do a Cortana voice search using a Windows computer, or Amazon Alexa is a big one. If you say, "Hey Alexa," that's using Bing. And DuckDuckGo is another one that we see here. It's a kind of a privacy-oriented search engine that people use that doesn't actually track your searches to offer you targeted ads. So that's what DuckDuckGo is. It uses Bing as well. So really, what's the difference between these two? They're both gonna get you good results. It's really whatever you're most comfortable with, or whatever computer you already use, or whatever browser you already use is probably going to work pretty just fine for you. But Google usually returns the greatest variety of results, and it has the largest catalog of pages. Google features snippets. Featured snippets is what they call them in Google, which disseminate information quickly. That's a nice feature. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And Bing has more extensive autocomplete results, I guess. That's what I read anyway. And I have noticed that a little bit on Windows computers, and I'll show you what that looks like. So it tries to narrow your search for you based on what other people have searched for. And Google does this too, but Bing seems to do it a little bit more. So I will say, like, one thing I see a lot in the computer lab here is, or when we're helping people with computers, is when you type something into the search box, it'll come up with a list of results that it thinks you might be looking for. Like before you're finished with your sentence that you're typing, or your phrase that you're typing, there'll be an autocomplete results is what they call them, and it's suggestions of what you might be searching for. Well, a lot of people think that is like suggestions of things that are out there, suggestions of things that exist that you might be looking for, but it's actually just suggestions mostly based on what other people have searched for. So the distinction is kind of difficult to explain, but like if someone searched for Kansas leprechaun, that doesn't, and a lot of people are really into searching for that, then it doesn't mean that a Kansas leprechaun exists and that there's a lot of websites out there that teach you all about it. It just means that a lot of people have searched for that. So sometimes those autocomplete results are helpful, and sometimes they can even throw you off a little bit, though, because if everyone's searching for something that's not quite right, then you have to be a little discerning on how helpful those are. But it can be a good time saver whenever you're able to click on them and they make sense. So this is the Google snippet I was mentioning. I got a couple of searches in here. My washing machine was smelling. It's a brand new washing machine too, so I don't know why. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. So I was doing a little search, and this is a good example of a Google snippet. It tries to summarize your question from one of the top website results. So right at the top, so you don't have to actually click on the website and get into that. It just kind of tries to summarize it at the top for you, and like have an excerpt. And I know we've probably all seen this a lot, but that's what it's called, featured snippet. And when I jump on a Windows computer and I type in to the search bar how to fix, let's say I was going to say how to fix washing machine, it has a lot of these autocomplete results that come up that may or may not be what you're looking for. So I guess that's my point, is like it can be helpful, it can also kind of like distract you or point you in the wrong direction sometimes. So like everything on the internet, it's a big place. You got to be discerning, and that's what we'll talk about at the very end, is some information literacy tips and how to be discerning about what's out there. So yeah, I guess I would say, I don't know if anyone um, has anything to add, like anyone really prefers one search engine over the other. I'm not sure, a lot of people, you would kind of have to compare a lot, like search for, open toe shoes, and then go over to the other search engine and search for the same thing to kind of compare. And I'm not sure people do that a whole lot. People are usually just using the one that's most convenient. So there's some other options out there. So Yahoo is a really well-known one. It's sort of a search engine. It's actually powered by Bing also. So again, it's mostly Google and Bing. But Yahoo, they call it a web portal. So when you go to yahoo.com, it aggregates news and articles and just all kinds of things, weather from around the internet, and it's also a search engine using Bing. DuckDuckGo, I mentioned earlier. If anyone's really uncomfortable with like targeted ads, that's how Google makes their money. So when you search for open-toed shoes in Google, you might start getting some ads from Macy's tomorrow, and you might get ads from Macy's like a month from now after you've already bought your shoes. And so sometimes people have different opinions about that. Some people like it; it can be useful, or some people don't care for that, and they might prefer to use a more private search engine like DuckDuckGo. I think DuckDuckGo uses Bing as well. Yandex is Russia's largest search engine. Baidu is China's largest search engine. So these search engines are really big, but worldwide they don't make up as nearly as big of a market share as Google and Bing. And then there's also the Internet Archive, which is pretty neat. That's you can look and find old things that have been posted on the internet in the past. They have what they call the Wayback Machine, where you can search the history of the internet, and then there's lots and lots of free content on there. So now we can get into some search tips. So like I said, there's different ways to search. You're not always just sitting at a desktop computer or on a laptop, but if you were searching in a browser, you would just navigate to the search engine website, like go to google.com or bing.com and type, or you can just type directly into the address bar at the top of your browser. Most of us probably know this, but we actually help a lot of people here at the library, and not everyone knows that. You can just type whatever you want right into the address bar at the top of the browser, and it's just as good as going to google.com. And when you're searching, it's really best to only use important words of your phrase, like, well, with traditional search engines anyway. We'll talk a little bit about AI search engines in a little bit. But traditionally, you would type in, tan open toe shoes. But you wouldn't type in, I need tan open-toed shoes to go to the prom on Thursday, because it's that there's too much information for, you want to just boil it down to the most important things and then go from there. So you don't need articles or prepositions or conjunctions necessarily. And you can use the most basic forms of the word. So you can use like singular of the words, and you don't need to use plural or suffixes behind the words. Capitalization usually isn't important. That doesn't usually matter. And spelling usually doesn't have to be perfect. Usually, like the search engine will correct your spelling for you to some extent, as long as it's close. Some more search tips are you can use search filters to narrow your search, and we'll talk about some of those specifically. Filters, that always sounds kind of complicated to me, but it's just categories, maybe you could call it, categories of searching, like whether you want to search for images or search for videos or search for maps. You can perform a voice search, which we've already mentioned, with your phone using Siri or Google Assistant, or using the Google app. A lot of people may not realize you can type a math problem directly into the search bar or by using your voice assistant. So you don't have to like pull up a calculator app necessarily. You can just type in your math problem right into the search bar and it'll come up with the arithmetic right there at the top of the screen. This is one I really like. You can perform unit conversions directly in the search bar. So, how many teaspoons are in a cup, and then you just type that right into the Google or Bing search bar, and then it'll give you the information right there. You don't have to like download a unit conversion app on your phone. You could, if that's more convenient for you, but you could also just type it right in. If you're looking for a definition of a word, you can put define. You can type define in front of the word for a definition. So, trying to think of a good example here. I was talking about washing machines. Define washing machine, and then that'll give you the definition of what that is. So that's kind of cool. You don't have to go to like dictionary.com and then type in there. And if you're wanting to find a specific phrase, you can use quotations. Some people use quotations quite a bit, but you only want to use quotations when you want those specific words to be in that exact order. So if you use quotations around words, it'll only return search results with those words in that order. So one useful way to use that is if your computer or phone gives you an error message, you can type that exact phrase with quotations around it in the search engine, and then probably find some other people that have gotten that same error message, and you can start diagnosing your problem. So we mentioned filters earlier, and this is what I mean by that. Can you see my mouse on the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I search in Google for Kansas, these buttons underneath, these are filters. So by default, it's giving me all results. But you could also search for images of Kansas. You could search for news about Kansas. You could search for maps. You see all the things, perspectives, videos, weather, city. And so those are called filters. And I use those a lot. Like when I'm building this presentation, I'm using a lot of screenshots. So I pulled in some of those icons, and I'm typing Apple iPhone logo, and then I click on images, and then it's showing me all of the images for that logo. It's not giving me articles. It's not giving me perspectives or news stories about it. Just the images. So another example is shopping. So if I type in lawnmower, it's going to have the shopping filters. So if you type in anything that's like a product, and we've all kind of experienced this probably, but if I type in Kansas, it's not going to give me shopping because people don't really shop for Kansas. But if you type in lawnmower, you're going to start getting some shopping filters, and usually that's what you're wanting to do. I mean, more often than not, we're like internet shopping, really. So you can start filtering it by price and how close it is to you and things like that. And then this is an example of, actually, this is images. Let me see here. I'm a little confused on my screenshot. This is just typing in lawnmower. It looks like that. It gives you general results. And then if you click on shopping, it looks like this. So you can filter by price and by brand, and these are just screenshots, so I can't really scroll down the page, but you get the idea. The first one, my son actually has this green one. It's a pretty common lawnmower. My nephew and my son have it. First search result. And then we can also search for, this is what it looks like when you search for images. So you still have some shopping, but then you just start getting really good pictures of lawnmowers, and every article out there that has a good picture of a lawnmower. Another thing I wanted to mention right here, there's a button, at least on Google, that says Tools. That can be useful if you're looking for a certain size of image or a certain color image or a type of image. If you're searching for like a JPEG or a PNG, so you can refine your image search even more. So if I was making a presentation, I might want only large images so that they're not pixely, and I could select. Actually, I think this will give you small, medium, large, right there. Another one that's super useful is, there's websites like Kayak and travel.com and things like that. Well, in Google, if I were to search for Philadelphia, and then I click on flights over here under the filters, click on flights, and then it doesn't give me general information about Philadelphia anymore. It gives me just all the various flight deals for a plane to Philadelphia. So again, you can use another app or another website, but anymore, a lot of stuff is built right into the search engine, so you can search for your flights right there. And I think that it has like pretty much all of them included here, like it's kind of synthesizes all of them from the internet, so it's going to be one of your best bets. Another thing I really like to do, I was doing this the other day, is an audio search. So, when a song is playing in a restaurant or on TV, you can ask your phone, what song is this? And another little tip that people might not know is, so if you're using iPhone, you're asking Siri, but it's actually using Shazam because Apple bought that company. So it used to be its own app, but now Apple owns it. So when you say, hey, what song is this, Siri? It actually comes up with this Shazam icon on the iPhone screen now, and that's what it's using and to find what song you're listening to, and it'll pop up with Apple Music, and it'll give you a recommendation. Well, it'll tell you what song it thinks it is, and it'll pop up with Apple Music, and so you can listen to it right in Apple Music if you want. And then on Android, it uses Google Assistant, and it'll play in the Android version of that app.
Jim, can I interrupt a second? Because there's a
Sure.
question that I think goes along with what, if you're getting to it later, let me know. But
Mm-hmm.
one of Shelley brought up the question about sponsored results
Mm-hmm.
and nerves, but she's a little nervous about that. Is that reasonable? But also, where do you tell if it's sponsored and where do you not know if it's sponsored? If you're looking for those, if I'm looking for the best recipe for something, I always have to search down because I have 12 sponsored ones from a company to get down to what might really be the best in a more
Yeah.
general sense.
Yeah, you're right. That's a big part of it. That was kind of my first, I'm getting to that, and like
Oh, I'm
that was
sorry.
no,
Okay.
not at all. That's actually one of the first things that I thought of with this class. And unfortunately, it's kind of hard to go over all the permutations of it, because there's so many ways that these sponsored search results and ads, and we're going to talk about advertorials here in a minute. Things that kind of look like an article, but they're really an ad. So at the end of the day, you have to really kind of just take your time, and it looks a little different. And what I've noticed is that it's changed over time, like the way that it sometimes will say sponsored by the search result. Sometimes it says ad by the search result. Sometimes, the ads are in the middle of the page and they look like they're part of the article, but they're actually an ad from a separate company or separate website. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, it's bad information. But yeah, what I would say is the way Google makes its money. I end up talking, I've been finding more and more that I talk about, the economics of the internet when I'm explaining it because, how is all this stuff free? Well, it's free because the company that sells shoes pays Google so that their shoe company website comes up at the top. So if you're searching for open-toed shoes and that company comes up at the top, it may or may not be the best company for you or the most relevant even. They're the ones that paid to be at the top. So usually the first top like one or two results may be an ad. So like it's really, you kind of just have to, I would just say take your time because it's really easy just to type in something and then click on that very first thing. And then the very first thing is usually an ad. So usually you do have to go to like number 2 or number 3 and then just kind of take your time there for a few seconds and kind of look for that word ad or sponsored. And it may be that may be a great search result for you, maybe exactly what you're looking for. Or it also may be a little like not so great. It's just whoever paid to be at the top. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's malicious or that it's, a bad website to go to or anything like that. But it's definitely something to be discerning about and to take your time and understand. I'll go ahead and share again because we're getting there, and really that's mostly what I have to say about it. I have a few examples that I'll show you like what they look like, and I think we've all seen it though, but we can at least kind of have a couple of visual examples. Yeah, a couple more kinds of searches. This is actually, I think, a pretty useful one that y'all might be interested in, a reverse image search. So if you're on Google, there's a little camera icon. This is called the Google Lens icon. And if you click on that, it'll allow you to upload a file from your computer. And so I'm trying to think of a good example. If you have something that you don't exactly know what it's called, but you have a picture of it, then you can search by the picture rather than by a description. So, I was searching for something that you might search, like if I was going to replace my dining room light fixture, I might just search by image because they're all so different. And I just want to like look through the ones that look until I find one that looks the way that I want it to look. Or maybe I have a kitchen light fixture and I want to replace it and I want it to look similar. I could take a picture of my kitchen light fixture and then I could search by that picture and then it would pull up everything on the internet that all the light fixtures out there that look similar to mine. Another way that I use this personally is there are apps that identify like weeds and plants and flowers and stuff like that. Well, you can use an app to do that, but you can also use the Google app here on an iPhone or Android. And then when you click on that Google app, there's that Google Lens icon here. And you can click on that and then it'll ask to access your photo library. And then you can pull up like a photo that you've taken and it'll tell you what kind of plant it is. So that's what kind of flower, native grasses, all that fun stuff, what kind of tree it is, birds. So that's a lot of fun to do that. And that's the Google app is one of the best ways to do that. I don't actually find myself using the Google app very much except for this. This is a really good use of it. All right. One last little tip. I think we're getting to the information literacy part. If you want to remove a word from your search terms, like the example I saw was if you're searching for marketing and you're thinking about like traditional marketing, like maybe print media or like door-to-door marketing or something, but every website that you find is talking about social media marketing on Facebook. Well, that's not what you're asking. You want to remove the word social media from your search so they don't get all those searches. You can type in a dash before those words. So you can use the hyphen or the dash minus key. So you can type in marketing and then you can type minus social or minus media and then it'll pull up search results that aren't including those words. That's a pretty advanced one, but if you're ever searching for something that keeps coming up with the wrong thing, that could be useful to keep in mind. Um, got a couple about AI. I'm gonna skip over to the ads we are talking about, and then we'll just kind of back up to there. Um, yeah, so I typed in here, be aware of ads. I didn't type beware of ads because they're not necessarily bad. It's just um, this is an example of what it might look like here. It says ad right there, and then this one says ad. And I was trying to find information about this. I'm not 100% sure. It seems to me like Google changes. It's not static. They're changing the algorithm. They're changing the way it works um, from week to week, month to month. So it seems like I don't see it look like this quite as much anymore. And in the library, we have a firewall that I think stops some of this. So I wasn't able to like see this quite as much from inside the library. But when you're searching for something, you'll see these ads here at the top, and you just have to be on the lookout that they're an ad, and it may or may not be useful, or it may be exactly what you're looking for, but it's good to know the difference. And like I said, the advertisers pay for that result to be at the top. So sometimes, I think we may have all noticed this, like if you're searching for, goodness, like if you're searching for, Ford truck, and then the first thing that'll pop up is Chevy. Because like Chevy told they like paid Google to where when people search for Ford trucks, make sure ours comes up first. And so you'll see that with like really competitive companies like that have similar products, sometimes. And so then you'll click on the very first link and you'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to click on that. So all I can really say is to take your time. This is interesting to me. This is, there's just a lot of information on the internet, and a lot of it is like articles, right? Like editorials, like websites, like Jack mentioned cooking, and it'll kind of be in the style of an article that you'll see in a magazine or a blog. Well, sometimes it might look like an article, but it's actually just an advertisement. So this right here kind of looks like something that would be like in a teen magazine about how to wash your face, but it's really just made by this company Simple to sell their face wash, but they make it look like an article. And so there's a lot of that with news, with just all kinds of stuff, like really everything. You see it a lot. So you just have to take your time and see if it's actually like an article written by a unbiased third party, or if it's literally written by the company that is selling the product that they're mentioning in the article. And so that's where we get into they call it the crap test. It's one way to do it. This is um, when you're reading something on the internet, you can ask yourself, what is the currency of this information? Is it current? And so this can go for um, like we're talking about ads. It could also go for like news and current events and things that you're trying to make sure is legitimate. Um, so if you're looking at a website, you might want to look at when it was published, or if it even has a date. Because if it's from 4 years ago and it's, or 6 or 7 years ago, and it's telling you some stat, like if I'm researching how much market share Google and Bing have, then it's important that I look at that date, because if it's from 2018, that might not be accurate anymore, just because it's out of date. Obviously, it's not current anymore. So that's something to check always. Um, is the information relevant? And what is it? Is the intended audience? Is it from a reputable source or even a real person? I had a friend one time that sent me a news article, and they were trying to convince me of something, and that was kind of controversial, and so I was kind of trying to argue with them a little bit, and And I looked into it, and this article was by um, like Cindy, a mother of four, and that's all that the biography was. Cindy, a mother of four. It wasn't a real person, you know. It was an article that was, you know, it was fake. It was not real, and the author was not a real person. So yeah, and that it goes to, is the information accurate? Is it evidence-based? Is it verifiable? And this kind of goes back to my advice to just take your time, because I mean, checking the accuracy of things on the internet is not a quick process. You know, you might have to look at 5 other websites just to kind of cross-reference and figure out if you can trust what you're looking at. What is the purpose of this information? Is it fact, or is it an opinion? Is it advertising, or is it meant to persuade you, or is it meant to cause fear? You know, like really thinking about, why does this exist and who wrote it, and consider the source. You know, there's also, that's also another way to say it. So there's no really there's no like perfect way to do it, but it can be kind of a process. You just have to be as discerning as possible. So we'll back up. Do you have any questions about that? I know you all have had Sam Altman here. Didn't you have Sam a few months back?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, we did. So there are a couple questions, but they're not specific. If you want to take a couple questions now before you go further, that we can do that.
Sure.
Okay. One of the questions was, how do I avoid third-party websites such as hotels.com versus Holiday Inn in Lawrence? And I think that's what you type in, but I think that's their question.
So how do you avoid those popping up when you're not wanting to go to them?
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to say. If they're looking for a hotel and they want to look for a hotel in Lawrence, how do they avoid the ones that are hotels.com or kayak or whatever, and just go to the hotels that are
Yeah.
in Lawrence?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you'd have to type the actual hotel website in, you know, like if it's like Hampton Inn. What I would probably do to do that, honestly, is I'm a big fan of searching via the map. I didn't actually include that in this, but this is just me personally. I really like maps a lot, so you can look at Google Maps. And so what I would do is I would type in Lawrence into Google, and then it'll come up with a little map on the, you know, right hand side of the screen, and you can click on the map. And then once you're looking at Google Maps of Lawrence, you're looking at a map of Lawrence, and it has a search bar on the side, and you can type in hotels. And then I should have included this actually. I could show you if you want. Um,
Well,
and then,
this is Vicky. I'm sorry, I didn't
uh-huh,
mean to interrupt here, but
at all.
I've just had some trouble not knowing that I was getting dumped to a third party site from, I was in a search. An example, my most recent example is I was buying an airline ticket on American Airlines, and the document that you fill out, it said, do you want to buy insurance? Well, if you click yes, you're going to a third party site.
Hmm.
And so I just wondered if you had any tricks about avoiding that. I mean, it was okay in this instance, but it wasn't necessarily an American Airlines product.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's the issue.
I wish I did have some good tips about
I,
that, other than taking your
I can
time. Do
make
you
a
have any, Jack?
comment. I used to travel, and I can make a comment about that. If you want to buy an airlines ticket on the web, go to do what you do and buy the ticket. If there's anything else you want, insurance or anything else you want to check, don't continue on that site. Don't say yes. go to AmericanAirlines.com and then search or look through their site for your ability to do anything else with that ticket you want. And that generally worked for me. It's been a while since I've done a lot of traveling, but that was the way I used to do it, if that helps.
Thank you.
There was one other, I think it was a statement rather than a question, but uh, Gary's suggestion, there's a good search engine for math and geography, and I have no idea if I'm going to pronounce this correct. wolframalpha.com. And you can get a lot of conversions like furlongs per mile or cities in Kansas if they're generally in the geography or the math area, according to him. So I'm just putting that out there for people who didn't see his type. And then Shelley says, doesn't Google Maps only provide commercial sites that have paid to be there? And
Probably.
my guess is that's true. However, I have found that if I type in, for example, restaurants around a place that I'm going, uh, pretty much all, I mean, almost all of them, I mean, even little mom and pops come up. So there may be a pay to play thing, but it can't be too much because I found a lot of little restaurants that show up on those. My experience.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jim.
I just all I was gonna say was I just like searching like that, like if, using your phone and then pulling up the Google Maps and then searching inside the maps, because a lot of what we do is geographical. If you're wanting to buy something, you want to know how far it is from your house. If you're wanting to go to the store, or if you're wanting a smoothie, or if you're wanting a park, or just all kinds of stuff. It just matters. I like seeing it in that visual. You see all the pins on the map and your city or your area, and you can just click on those and go through. So that would have been cool to include a slide for that because I just like searching like that. Yes, I was gonna say I feel a little silly talking about AI after Sam, but
He didn't talk about AI.
oh,
We had
right.
him talking about basic minimum income.
Okay.
So it just happens that he's a big advocate of that, and he happens to be obviously involved in AI. So
Well, I'm no AI expert, but I was just going to mention there are AI search engines as well. And then AI has also started to be kind of integrated into regular Google and Bing, like as they try to make those algorithms better. As I understand it, it's already integrated a little bit into just your regular Google searches, but you can also use specific AI search engines as well. So I can show you a couple of those. If you Google's AI search engine is called the Google Search Generative Experience (SGE), and Bing's is called Copilot, and then we have Chat GPT as well, which is not technically a search engine, but it can do a lot of the same kinds of things. And then and there's one called Andy Search that seems to be pretty popular. But if I click on this Google, well, let me see here. I'm actually going to use the Bing one because I could I can't turn on. So the way it works, I can show you the page here. See if I can change what page I'm sharing. Okay, can you see my browser window here? If I go to Google, there's a little I'm having trouble finding the right websites for you. If you go to regular Google, there'll be a what do you call it? Like a beaker. Like, so it's called Labs, Google Labs, and it'll be up here. And you click on that, and you can turn on the Google Labs generative search engine. And so then it looks like this. Yeah, there it is. And so I was able to turn it on my phone, but I think the library might be our Google, the way our Google is set up with our work accounts. I don't think this option is there for me. So I could only turn it on my phone, so I can't really show you that too well. But that's how it looks, and you turn that on, and then when you're searching, it's just more, with AI search, it's just more conversational, really. So that may or may not be useful. I mean, if you're searching for tan open-toe shoes, you might not need a conversation. But if you're searching for something that is, like a philosophy question, or something that's, yeah, like just more open-ended, that's more conversational, then this can be a really cool option. I want to show you a couple of examples here. Bing is called Copilot. And so if you go to, where's the website here? Yeah, if you go to Bing, it'll have a try Copilot search up here. And you can search using that, and it looks like, can you still see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, I was still dealing with my washing machine problem, and when I typed in, why does my top loading washing machine smell? It looks like this. It's just more of a conversational answer rather than a list of different websites that you can look through. And so this is kind of like it's kind of like that featured snippet, but just much more filled in. So it's a whole paragraph with some instructions, and it just really synthesizes things for you. And ChatGPT is, really a name brand in this space. And this is, to give you an example, this is when I search in Bing AI, this is what it tells me about ChatGPT. It's not designed to search the internet directly. However, there's a new feature where you can browse the internet for up-to-date information, and it'll provide sources where it got that information. But right now, it's only available to Plus and Enterprise chatbot users with a ChatGPT account. So that could be very cool too. I haven't personally used it, but maybe some in here have explored that a little bit more. But you can, it seems to me like the Google and Bing options are still like the easiest way to do AI conversational based searches for the internet. And yeah, I think that's all I got for you. So I would be interested to hear if anyone has explored that. I haven't explored it a lot myself. I mean, it's interesting to look at, what the regular Google gives me about my washing machine, and then what the AI Google gives me about my washing machine. It's similar information. It's just kind of presented in a different way. And I would say the AI is more, it's more synthesized, like it synthesizes it down into a few paragraphs that you can read rather than kind of click around to different links. So kind of whatever you prefer, I suppose.
Okay. Are there any more questions? I don't see any yet.
I thought about getting even more into the information literacy part, and really that's like it's own program, isn't
What-
it?
yeah,
Like
what-
we should probably like just make an
I
entire program for that.
I mentioned that to Jim and Kathleen a bit ago, one of the things down the line that I was looking at is, kind of verification and search verification and all that kind of stuff to find out what's true and what isn't true, and where to go. And I think that's at least one at least one other episode. I for those people who know me, I do a lot of political searching, and so you're looking at the source, and then you can't figure out the source, so you're looking up the source, and then you don't know anything about that, so you look at the source and try to find the owners of the source, and then you look up the owners of the source, and then you try to figure out, and all to get if there's a political bias, for example. So the question is, as he said, take your time. It depends on how much time you're willing to dedicate to that rabbit hole.
Exactly.
So you're right.
I've done some similar things, Jack, and yeah, it like you can spend 30 minutes or an hour trying to get to the bottom of something and then realize that, at the end of the day, if you weren't there,
Yeah.
then nothing's 100% verifiable.
Exactly. And one of the things, and I think Jim mentioned this, that's worked very well for me in a lot of things, is if you see something that's a quote or a statement or just a fact that's listed, and you just copy it and search for that statement, then you'll start getting source. You'll see the source you saw originally, but you'll see other sources, and you can start making judgments based on that. That's his suggestion earlier about copying things or putting it in quotes and looking for it is really been great for me. So I
I've
don't
seen
know.
people do those reverse image searches. So like if there's an event that happens and there's a picture of this thing happening and it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. You can like maybe take a screenshot of that image and do that reverse image search with Google Lens, and
Yeah.
then it might pull up a different news article from 5 years ago that's related to. And that's another way that you can tell if something's actually fake is
There,
search for the
I'm
images used in the
Yeah.
article.
There are a couple more questions. Let me grab these while we have a few more minutes. One of them is, in all fairness, speak to the edu suffix link. So I guess if for those things that end in edu, meaning they're, I guess, a university or a school, I'm not 100%. Terry, if you want to unmute and explain that a little better, if I'm not explaining the question very well.
I just thought it was good to tell the people that if you would like to get sources that are university published, then you put in your Google search, you put and I'm sorry, I can't remember. Don't you put a /.edu? So let's say I'm searching petunias and I say petunia /.edu. Then every reference I'm going to get will come from a university publication, correct? Am I making this up?
That sounds like a good start to
Yeah,
me.
it sounds like I didn't know that, but it sure sounds like would make sense if that's true, and that's a great way to verify things.
The only part I'm not sure, for all I know, it's 2 /. I apologize.
Mm.
Susie Nightingale knows.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a little experimenting and get back to everybody on that. There's another question. Is there any way of knowing where the AI is synthesizing its answers from? How reliable is it, or is it too soon?
Well, that's a big question. So I don't know if I can answer that, but um, I think from what I understand, it can be kind of murky even for the people that created it, like exactly what's going on underneath the hood and where all the information comes from. But
I
I
can
think it's
give you Sam.
supposed to be
I'm sorry.
getting better at
Yeah, I can give you Sam's answer, and his answer would be too soon for that kind of use of AI. AI has really been purposeful in medical fields and other things right now. But when it comes to search and when it comes to, writing papers and that kind of stuff, there's so many new versions still coming out. And the early versions just grabbed everything that was available that they could get that wasn't secured some other way on the internet. So that doesn't judge reliability. It just judges availability. And so his answers when I chatted with him once was, it can be really helpful, but it's still early days for that kind of ability for ChatGPT. You know, so that's what he would say. Okay, there's also, I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my screen here. I always get nervous about changes the computer wants to make. I have Windows 10, but it asked me if I wanted 11. Is Windows 11 really better?
I would just say it's different. You know, it's different. But unless you're like a really, really power user of Windows and really advanced, then it's probably not going to be anything better for you. It's just going to be different. And so you're probably better off with what you're used to.
And I think it also depends on your computer, the age of
Yeah.
your computer and its ability to handle any upgrade will take more memory and more everything else. Let me see there. I think there was one more. I am not a computer person, but generally updated versions are intended to fix the problems in the older programs. So I think that's probably somewhat true. Jim, is that basically?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are. It's just I would say it's a trade-off between what you're used to and like, because it could be objectively better. So that's why the company is making it. It's like objectively easier to use. But if you're used to something different, if you're used to looking a different way or something like that, then it might not seem easier to you because it takes like 2 years to get used to it. So it's just kind of a trade-off a little bit sometimes, because once you use a computer a certain way for like 5 or 10 years, you're just used to the way it works, and it's even if something is better, it still just kind of throws you off for a while and slows you down. So, but eventually you'll have to upgrade, if you get a new computer. So I'm generally pretty slow to upgrade. So everyone's kind of just whatever you prefer, really, but it'll be okay in the end. But I upgrade pretty slowly.
Yeah, Penny brought up a good point. Some programs won't upload without Windows 11. There are things, depends on when the program was written. The newest ones will intentionally not upload or may take more memory. So I think it's a combination of the age of your phone or your computer and what the new program has, but they always take more power because they have new stuff. So that could be a difference. Gary, did you have a question?
No, I had comments about like upgrading to Windows 11 is basically a marketing scam from Microsoft, as far as I can tell. And it was mostly just comments along the way that I.
Okay. There's things built in that help generate revenue for Microsoft. It's not just to make it better for the user.
Apple is not innocent. I just upgraded a year ago. Another thing about Wolfram Alpha, it's I like it. It's more of a knowledge base than just a search engine. So I could type. I did another little experiment. I could type in distance from Kansas City to Paris, and it will tell me it's 4,500 miles. And there's just a lot of knowledge, if you will, behind it, and might check it out.
Yeah, that looks very cool. I'm looking at it right now.
So we're getting a little bit past the hour, so I'm going to have to kind of cut it off. But I think, Jim, we want to thank Jim. I think it was excellent. We all learned stuff tonight, which is the point. And I think one of the things we learned is, cautiously try a lot of things and, get what works for you, but cautiously. But at any rate, I think that's great. We have more activities coming up. We hope to see all of you in some of those as the month goes through January and through the rest of the year. I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening and thank Jim again for what's always a great presentation. And tell everybody have a good evening and we'll see you next